Hello y'all, good morning. It's the day after the solstice, so we are officially going to have brighter days, longer days every day, more sun. And I kind of written off these tomatoes. I did a little work on them, the Save the Tomatoes initiative. Well, we are now entering the days of longer light. If these tomatoes have held out unassisted basically in this greenhouse up until the solstice, I'm going to go ahead and honor their attempt to live and try to help them out. So here's what we're looking at. A lot of the stuff that I strung up, the investment that I put into it didn't pay off. However, see that? That is looking pretty good. And there's some signs of life in there, I noticed when I was looking earlier. I actually saw some little sprouts of life coming off, see this? Off some of those vines, so I am going to try to save them. Now the squash gave up. I watered it once and it was just on the way out. But I'm going to have a good seed stock, I'll tell you that. That's all dead. And anything, these long trailing vines that just don't have any life. Since I've let it sit for a few weeks, now I know what's what. Now I did string some vines that look likely into here, and that was a bust. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to go through here and just clip back everything that basically looks like it has no chance at all. Fruit right there. Couple new. And as for the rest of it, I'm going to bring some barrels in. I'm going to give them some additional light, and we're going to try to keep them alive. I mean, if they made it this far, I don't think I can hurt. So I'm going to cut out all these vines that just are worthless, and then I'll get back to you and show you what's left, and then I'll show you what I'm going to do. Oh yeah, I forgot to mention on my loader, I got it all put back together, got the batteries charged, went to start it, and then there's this thing called a solenoid switch. I thought the solenoid was a switch, you know, you have the starter and then the solenoid that kicks the starter on. But apparently, on this 24-volt system, there is a switch that goes to the solenoid itself. It's a solenoid switch, and it's a separate deal. Anyway, when I went to try to start the thing, it caught on fire. So I'm over there checking the batteries, plugged them all up, looked around the corner, and there's my harness on fire. So I found the part and I ordered it. I'll repair a couple wires when I get that part in, and then I will bleed off the fuel injectors to get the air out and try to get some fuel, and we'll see if the loader's going to start. So at this point I'm on hold, so I am going to work on this just because I checked it out and I'm like, well, yeah, it's kind of not that great of an investment of effort, but let's just see. At this point it's been completely no additional heat, no additional light, and they're still hanging on. So man, what a great start on the spring if we can hold on to them. I'm going to be working on just organizing, cleaning the greenhouses. I'm not even putting a lot in right now. It is what it is. But I need to get my tools and stuff organized, so I'm going to be working a lot on that. But I'm going to get these tomatoes squared away first, and just in the honor and hopefulness of the coming spring. So I was thinking what a blessing it is to be in the zone we're in, where it just hasn't been that bad yet. If you're too far north, man, move south, but not too far south, because then you have to have air conditioning to survive in any reasonable way, in my opinion. Somewhat getting to zone 7, man. You get winter and summer and everything, but none of it's too bad. And growing food is actually a bit more manageable. So I'll show you this project in a little bit. Thanks for watching. So as I'm sitting out here working, kind of wondering, is this worth the investment? Is what I'm doing today a good use of my time, considering how many endless things that I need to work on and accomplish? Just endless list of things I should be doing, could be doing. So I'm sitting here thinking about that, kind of coming to the conclusion that yes, it's worth it to a point. Yeah, I'm doing a hard thing, may or may not work out, but you know, as homesteaders, we do need to try the hard things sometimes, just to see what we can do. Somebody has to make the sacrifice of time and effort and money to do things. Because yeah, there's people that grow tomatoes in greenhouses. Professional, you can get the information and you can probably do a hothouse and burn all kinds of fossil fuels and electricity and blah, 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 and make some money at it and do it. It's probably a whole science to it. But that's not what I'm talking about here. What I'm talking about is just regular people doing things to see what can be done and learn from it. learn the lessons and be able to share it and maybe improve things and make it easier for us to sustain ourselves on the land. Learning the hard lessons. It's not about having a business for me. This is not going to pay off monetarily at all, ever. But is it important? Yes. We do have swings in weather. I don't believe in climate change and all that nonsense, but you know, the sun, the main driving force of the weather, it does burn hotter and colder. We do have cold spells and hot spells. We do have many ice ages and La Niñas and all that. You have warmer and cooler, just based on cycles of the luminaries, and just who knows, all the variables. So we should be able to make sure we can produce reliably through that. So if I can keep tomatoes alive in a greenhouse, so far as unheated by, I do have thermal mass sitting in here. It's probably why everything's still alive in here. I do have 2 layers of plastic, and I do have an insulated back wall. So this is probably a little bit warmer of a greenhouse than many, but it's leaky. You can see the air blowing right through. I need to work on that. That's a problem. It's to say it's not perfect. But even in that, I still have this still alive. So if I can keep these tomatoes subtropical or whatever they are, they're definitely annuals in a good part of the country. If I can keep it alive and turn it into a perennial plant with a minimum of inputs, without a whole lot of energy and a whole lot, that's very valuable, because you can take your lessons and apply it to other less fragile crops. If we could manage to do it with tomatoes, then I just think there's a lot of value there. But the point would be is we do need to try to stretch things. We do need to try to extend our seasons and grow things maybe where they don't want to grow, but maybe we can get them to grow. And if we can keep them alive and see how that goes, there's a lot of power in that. We need the pioneers. So I'm trying to pioneer this. I don't have a whole lot of information from other sources. I'm just doing what I can, trying to figure it out. And there was actually just circumstances that happened, kind of accidents and whatever, what have you, but I'm where I'm at now. So I don't want to spend all my time trying to do the impossible thing. I don't think that's the approach. And there is, you know, tendency to want to be a purist. It's like, well, not using any energy at all. Well, maybe that's not the smartest approach, especially while you have cheap energy. Maybe I could use energy and just see what I could do. So maybe I should use some extra lights and some extra heat and make sure that I succeed. But do it on a smaller scale than what a professional greenhouse would do. Anyway, in all of that, it's just, if you have things you're pioneering and figuring out, doing things contrary or just different or outside the norm, hey, get in touch with me. Let's talk. Tell me what you're doing. Let's share notes, because I want to learn what we actually can do. And I'm just sharing my story. You're welcome to join in and hear what I have to say if it doesn't bore you. When I encourage you to try, we need to homestead, and that's not a business. That is a life. Not the pretty little selfie moments and oh, well, that would be nice. Yes, it's possible. All of this stuff where, man, let's just get down and dirty and do it. For real. Lifestyle, living it. Replacing the systems of the world with our own systems on a local level. Providing for ourselves in a real way, a sustainable way. And it's going to be messy, it's going to be hard. I encourage you to do the real homesteading, not this whole generation of just selfie moments and wishful thinking. Anyway, sorry for the digression. I had gotten in here on these plants and I've pulled a lot of the dead stuff out just to see what I'm working with. So I'm going to try to put these in more dirt. I'm going to bring in some plastic containers, bring in some more dirt. I'm probably going to go ahead and use like warming pads that you would use for seedlings. I'm probably going to try to keep at least this tomato alive with more dirt and a heating pad, and then put it inside of some barrels and do some things to see if we can keep this thing alive till spring. Give it a little more light and see if we can use it to just make lots of suckers. Some of this stuff is not a whole lot of green on it, but it's not dead. So I'm going to try to use that one if I can. I got basically 2 plants left. That one, maybe this one. I haven't dug that one out yet. Anyway, I'll show you my pioneering methods. I'll see what we can get done. I think I will go ahead and use a little electricity for now, and eventually I will use solar, but right now I have a plug, so I'm going to use it just to make sure I succeed in this. So, or at least have a backup, because we've been lucky so far. I would say that there are some Decembers this would be already dead. But in this greenhouse right now, of according to a fairly accurate thermometer, we're at 68, 67, almost 70. And it was down in the 20s last night, and this stuff's not dead. I did kind of wait a couple weeks and see if anything was going to live, and all this is still alive, so I'm going to try to save it. So I imagine this is going a little long, so I'll talk to you more later when I get a little further in my progress. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Well, I realized I should probably get off my soapbox and tell you a few practical things here. What I've been doing is just cutting away the dead vines, and I just started to tip and trace it back until I find some life on it. Like this one has that little sprout of life there. I guess I'll leave it, but a lot of times I just cut whatever I have, whatever I'm looking at, I just trace it back until there's signs of life. So I'm getting all this dead stuff out of the way to give more light, more circulation to the vines that are trying to do something. And if it has any little signs of life on it, I go ahead and leave it for now. I figure a lot more of this is going to die off. But even when I'm leaving these little stubs, I'm hoping, like this would be the one I was after. See that little sucker there? I went to the next node that had a dead sucker, and I cut it off past the next node, hoping that at least some of this life will be absorbed back in to the vine. I'm not sure if that's the way this plant's actually going to do it, but I'm just trying to give whatever's alive a little bit of chance that I'm not cutting it right back to that. I'm leaving an extra node. Give it a little time to just drop off whatever it doesn't want. And if it's even just green stem, I'm leaving it no leaves on it, but I'm thinking that maybe even a green stem can give some energy back to the plant. Realizing most of the energy is coming from the root here. So I'm going to do a lot of extensive work to build up around these roots and raise it up, bury it. It's like mulching it in dirt, but tomatoes are one of those rare plants that don't mind getting buried like that. So I'll get this all buried up, give it even more life. So I'll clear this out, spread it out, get down to the base of the plant, and then bury it in more dirt. I'm going to wrap a heating pad around it, greenhouse heating pad, and have it where I can turn it on. I won't turn it on until we need to, like a number of really cold days in a row. I'll probably come out and turn it on. Now I'm going to put the vine parts inside extra cold frames of just all these old junk barrels I have around here. And I will cut up this blanket and have it ready to just throw over the top when I need to. Or we could even use plastic, but I wanted to keep the circulation going. So I was just thinking of throwing blankets over it the nights it needs it. Like just put a couple screws to hold the blanket, and you can just throw it back. And then if you need to, you just come out here and flip them all over. Just take a couple minutes, and you can hold your heat in that way and maybe save your vines. I am hopeful that this will work, even though it's a little bit of a crazy attempt. I'm just taking advantage of the situation that's presented itself, and we'll see if it works. Anyway, I still got to get all this dead stuff out of here. And I'm just hoping that once I open this up, the parts that are alive will get encouraged to grow by the ever lengthening days now, even if it's just a couple minutes a day. It's made it to the part that to me it would want to kill it the most, is every day's a little shorter. That's going to send that plant into the giving up kind of mode, especially a tomato. But now we're on the other end of it. If we can keep the cold from killing it, the light's going to encourage it to grow. I am hopeful, even though I lost quite a bit, there's still stuff left. Anyway, talk to you more later. Okay, I think this is important. Now, I didn't have plastic up until a few weeks ago, and it had gotten below freezing, and this stuff was still alive in here. And I'm just sitting here puzzling over how is that possible. Well, you see there, 14 inches there on that front wall. That's below grade. The front of that is even with dirt, and down here it drops. And then I drop another 8 inches here. So this floor, this patio deck thing here, is like maybe 20 inches below grade, which is below the frost line. And a lot of these vines were laying on these bricks, and they were still alive. So I think that even if the air temperature got down, I think that the soil temperature was not below, below 50 actually, because tomatoes start dying at 50. So this little bit of ground temperature just kept the vines alive, and just the way, see how the vines are growing here? It's like the cold air settled down from up there down to here, but that cold air wasn't that cold. We just had a thermocline going on. And I do have all this water, thermal battery sitting there for future aquaponics. That also regulated the temperature in here. And I just think this design is actually, it's pretty good. It's working. Because there's been no help to keep these things alive, and it has been in the 20s, you know. And this is a little drafty. It's not like ideal. But I have this insulated back wall, and it's oriented directly south, so we're catching most sun. And it's not just, it's obviously the heat. The heat, there's been enough heat. So I'm just sharing, it worked. This worked. This design is not ideal, but it worked. I'm definitely going to seal that crack today. It's just blowing wind in. So anyway, I was puzzling over these tomatoes. So I'm going to try to take advantage of this and keep them going. If you guys have any unheated greenhouses that you're doing really well, I'd love to know your design. I'd love to know some of the reasons why it's working. I'm just amazed that all of these things I did, hoping they would work, kind of just integrated them into the design. It's working. So wow. I think you could really multiply this, and I know they do that with wall peonies or whatever you call them, those underground greenhouses. I can see how that works. I mean, this is somewhat along those lines, just not to that extreme, but the principle's working. Anyway, please get in touch with me if you got anything to share. I'd like to know. So here we are. I found this old plastic 55-gallon drum that had the top and the bottom cut off. So I just took my little skill saw and ripped it down the middle and then wrapped it around this. 2 stalks. There's a stalk there and a stalk, main stalk here. Put a couple of little brick ties and little brackets just to hold the thing in place. Got some dirt. I'm going to fill this bucket up and bring in some of these repurposed cut up 55-gallon drums. I'm going to make cold frames out of them. So I'm going to fill this with dirt and I'm going to put the vines over into the various barrels. Then I'm going to cut that blanket up. I've got an old piece of sanitary trim, that rubber trim. This stuff is excellent for sealing doors in greenhouses. I did it over there. I don't know if you can see it. And it works so well, I just going to do that more often now. Now I can see there's a draft coming out of that door. See those feathers wiggling around and stuff. I'm going to put some of that rubber trim around the base here to stop some of that air infiltration. Even though that in there is not as cold, I just want to stop it. I don't want any air getting in. I know you want ventilation, but this time of the year, I'll just take still, warm air. As long as we don't get aphids or something like that. I want to show you one other thing. I am going to get some more trim, rubber trim, but the solar pump running all the time. Tank gets full. It goes to that overflow valve, and then it floods down there. Muddy mess. So the pump's making way more water than we need. Pumping way more water. We finally got smart, put that overflow valve into a water trough, so the cows can drink some pretty decent water, and then it'll overflow and do the water the chickens like this. I have to get this landscaping done where that water is getting recycled back uphill, not going downhill, but that's a whole nother thing. So anyway, I'm going to bury those tomatoes, put some more rubber trim on, and I'll be back with you. Alright, here I am. Here's my weather stripping. Use the rubber strip. Cut it in little pieces, various shapes. A lot less breezy. And I took all the vines down. I buried the main vine here and then took all of the runners and put them into the various barrels, which is a secondary cold frame. I put 10 gallons of dirt in each one. Kind of buried some of the vines, and then if they're extra long, brought them kind of up just to leave them hang around and see what they do. So I'm really just trying to get the roots, the vines to take root. So we have, I hope this is a good variety of tomato because I don't really know. But this is what we've got. And I'm just going to take some old blankets and just throw them over it. And there's some more work on the threshold to help end some of the breeze coming through. And did some of this right here, just to kind of stop the breezes. So it's pretty airtight now, a lot less air movement. So it's going to get down to like 20 something tonight. So we're going to just cover the tomatoes like this and see how it goes. So thanks for watching.